The bombs have already fallen. Not a threat this time, not a drill. In the early hours of Saturday, February 28, 2026, the United States military and the Israeli Defense Forces launched simultaneous strikes on the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the Middle East that existed when you went to sleep last night no longer exists this morning. This is a special report. Every fact you are about to hear is confirmed, sourced, and on the record. We are going to take you through exactly what happened, exactly what was hit, exactly what Iran has already fired back, and exactly what this means for the United States, for the region, and for an oil market that keeps the global economy alive. No speculation, no exaggeration, just the sequence of events as they happened, and what they tell us about where this goes next. Here is what we know. At approximately 2:31 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, President Donald Trump posted a video to his Truth Social account. The message was 8 minutes long, and it began with 7 words that will be studied for decades. He said, "A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran." He described the campaign as massive and ongoing. He said the objective was to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. He said the U.S. had sought repeatedly to make a deal. He said they had tried. And then he said this, and these words are verbatim and on the record. They rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions. And we can't take it anymore. The operation has a name. The Pentagon announced it on social media alongside an image of the American flag. It is called Operation Epic Fury. The previous round of strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, conducted in June of 2025, was called Operation Midnight Hammer. The name has escalated. So has everything else. Simultaneously, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released his own video statement, confirming that Israel had launched what Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz described as a preemptive attack on Iran. Netanyahu's framing was direct and in front of cameras. He said the joint U.S.-Israeli operation was intended, in his words, to remove the existential threat posed by the terrorist regime in Iran, and that their joint action would create the conditions for the brave Iranian people to take their destiny into their own hands. He singled out President Trump by name and praised what he called historic leadership. A U.S. official confirmed to Al Jazeera that the attacks were carried out as a joint military operation between the two countries. A separate U.S. official told Reuters that strikes were being conducted by both air and sea. A person briefed on the operation told NPR it was expected to last several days, with Israel's military focusing specifically on targeting Iran's missile production infrastructure. Within minutes of those announcements, footage began emerging from Tehran, smoke rising above the skyline, sirens, citizens running. Iran's semi-official Fars news agency confirmed missile strikes on University Street and the Jamhuri area in central Tehran. Iran's Tasnim news agency confirmed additional explosions in the northern Sayed Khandan district of the capital. Reuters, citing an unnamed Iranian official, reported that several ministries in the southern portion of Tehran were targeted. Iranian media reported strikes extending beyond the capital, to Isfahan, to Qom, to Karaj, to Kermanshah, and to the western Elam province. Iran's airspace was closed. And then, within the hour, NetBlocks, the independent internet monitoring organization, confirmed that Iran had entered a near-total internet blackout, with national connectivity falling to just 4% of ordinary levels. The country went dark. Again. To understand why this happened today, and why it happened the way it did, you have to go back, not years, but weeks. Because the road to Operation Epic Fury was shorter than most people realize, and the final off-ramp disappeared less than 48 hours ago. The third round of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks had just concluded in Geneva on Thursday, February 24th. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had described the talks as productive. He had told CBS News that he expected a good chance of a deal remaining. He had confirmed that Iran had still not delivered its written proposal, that Tehran's political leadership had not yet signed off on the document. A senior U.S. official told Axios the Trump administration was waiting for that written proposal before detailed negotiations could begin. The talks ended with claims of progress from both sides and almost no concrete details. Trump, speaking to reporters on Friday, less than 24 hours before the strikes, said he was not happy with the negotiations but indicated he would give diplomats more time. That was Friday afternoon. By early Saturday morning, the bombs were falling. What happened in those intervening hours has not been fully confirmed. What is confirmed is this. A senior Middle East diplomat with direct knowledge of the talks told one outlet that, and this is their framing on the record, yet again, when negotiations get close to success, Israel has intervened to preempt diplomacy. That statement is on the record. It is one perspective. It is not a conclusion. What it tells us is that even among insiders with direct access to the talks, there is no consensus about what broke the diplomatic window and who made the final decision to act when they did. What we know about the military context is not ambiguous at all. This moment did not arrive overnight. The United States had been positioning assets in the region for weeks at a pace and scale not seen since the lead-up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group arrived in the Middle East on January 26th, confirmed by the U.S. Navy and the Associated Press. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced aircraft carrier ever constructed, arrived at the NATO naval base at Suda Bay in Crete, Greece on Monday, February 23rd, visually confirmed by multiple news agencies, and immediately began moving toward the region. This marked only the second time in history that two American carrier strike groups were simultaneously dispatched to the Middle East. The first time was June 2025, for the original strikes on Iran's nuclear sites under Operation Midnight Hammer. Additional U.S. combat aircraft, armored units, and air defense systems had been repositioned across bases in Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and the UAE. The New York Times, citing Pentagon officials, reported that hundreds of American service members had been transferred from Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, with parallel troop movements across the region. U.S. aerial refueling tankers and C-17 Globemaster transport aircraft arrived at Israel's Ben Gurion Airport on February 23rd, confirmed by multiple Israeli media outlets. The logistics signature of an imminent combined operation. On January 28th, Trump had written on Truth Social, "A massive armada is heading to Iran. It is moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose." He told Iran to come to the table. He warned that the next attack would be far worse than last June's strikes if a deal was not reached. On February 19th, Trump confirmed the Gerald Ford deployment publicly, telling reporters, and this is a direct on-the-record quote, "In case we don't make a deal, we'll need it." No deal was made. The target struck Iran aligned with what U.S. and Israeli planners had publicly signaled for months they considered the priority list. Trump stated explicitly in his video that the U.S. would destroy Iran's missiles and raze its missile industry to the ground. U.S. officials described the strikes as not a small strike and confirmed that dozens of American attack aircraft, launched from bases across the region and from at least one carrier, were involved. The areas of Tehran struck included locations in proximity to the offices of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Reuters reported, citing an official, that Khamenei was not in Tehran at the time and had been moved to a secure location. He had not been seen publicly in days before the strikes began. Iran's ballistic missile production infrastructure, the Parchin and Sharud complexes, were high on the confirmed target list. The Critical Threats Project at the American Enterprise Institute had documented in February that Israel had formally requested the United States strike those exact facilities if military action was ordered, specifically to degrade Iran's ability to retaliate. The Institute for Science and International Security had documented in satellite imagery that Iran was in the process of reconstructing buildings at those sites, the same buildings that house the planetary mixers required to produce solid fuel for ballistic missiles. The U.S. had intercepted a Chinese shipment of those same mixers in the Indian Ocean in November 2025. The reconstruction that made those sites a target was visible from orbit, and as of Saturday morning, those sites were being struck from the air. Iran's response did not wait. Within hours of the initial strikes, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced the first wave of what it described as a large-scale missile and drone attack against Israel. The Israeli military confirmed that missiles had been launched from Iranian territory toward Israeli soil. Air raid sirens sounded across Israel at approximately 8:15 a.m. local time. Israel declared a 48-hour nationwide state of emergency. Israeli Defense Minister Katz ordered all citizens to obey Home Front Command instructions. The country closed its airspace to all passenger flights. German carrier Lufthansa announced it was suspending flights to and from Tel Aviv, Beirut, and Oman until at least March 7th. KLM canceled flights from Amsterdam to Tel Aviv. Airlines across Europe began rerouting. The skies over the Middle East were emptying of civilian aircraft while filling with something else entirely. Then the strikes spread beyond Iran and Israel. And this is where the scope of what is now unfolding becomes impossible to understate. Iran targeted American military bases. Not one, not two, four. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest U.S. military installation in the entire Middle East, and the forward headquarters of U.S. Central Command, was targeted. Qatar's Ministry of Defense confirmed that its air defense systems, in coordination with U.S. forces, intercepted incoming Iranian missiles over Qatari territory. 2 missiles were intercepted. Qatar closed its airspace. Qatari authorities sent mobile alerts to all residents advising them to remain indoors and stay away from military installations. The U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, Naval Support Activity Bahrain in the Jufair district of Manama, was struck by Iranian ballistic missiles. Bahrain news agency confirmed the attack. Footage released by Iranian media showed heavy smoke rising from the base area. Sirens sounded across the island nation. Bahrain's Interior Ministry instructed residents to move to the nearest safe location immediately. Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, which houses U.S. personnel, was targeted. Residents in Abu Dhabi reported loud explosions. The UAE announced a temporary partial closure of its airspace as a precautionary measure. Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait was also reported as a target by Iranian state-affiliated media. The IRGC announced a third wave of attacks against Israel, involving additional missiles and drones. U.S. embassies in Jordan, the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain issued shelter-in-place orders for all American personnel and citizens. The U.S. Embassy in Amman stated, "The U.S. Embassy in Jordan is implementing a shelter-in-place for all personnel. We recommend all Americans do the same until further notice." U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee urged American citizens in Israel to stay near shelters and take immediate action at the sound of sirens. The UK Maritime Trade Operations Organization issued an emergency notice to all mariners, warning of significant military activity in the Arabian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, the North Arabian Sea, and the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz. That phrase matters more right now than almost any other geography on the planet. Roughly 20% of all globally traded oil passes through those 21 miles of water every single day, approximately 17 to 19 million barrels. Japan imports nearly 90% of its oil through Hormuz, South Korea over 70%. China draws roughly 40% of its petroleum imports through the strait. The Columbia University Center on Global Energy Policy had assessed, in an analysis updated through February 2026, that if Iran's oil export terminals or production fields are struck, oil prices could spike to between $80 and $100 per barrel in the short term. Brent crude was trading near $71 per barrel before today. Goldman Sachs had already estimated a $10 per barrel Iran risk premium built into current prices. That premium is about to be recalculated. What the next hours and days determine is whether this stays a military exchange with defined limits or becomes something without a defined ceiling. The voices responding to Operation Epic Fury are arriving from every direction simultaneously, and they do not point toward de-escalation. Senator Lindsey Graham posted on social media that the end of the largest state sponsor of terrorism is upon us, and called the operation necessary and long justified. Democratic Senator John Fetterman, who had supported the June 2025 strikes, praised the joint operation. Senator Ruben Gallego, an Iraq war veteran, said publicly that Trump has been willing to do what is right and necessary. These are not fringe voices. These are sitting senators responding in real time. Iran's exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, son of the last Shah, long a figure at the margins of Iranian political life, posted a video addressed directly to the Iranian people and to the Iranian military. He told security forces that they had sworn an oath to protect Iran and the Iranian people, not the Islamic Republic, and asked them to join the people and help bring about a stable and secure transition. He warned them that otherwise they would go down with what he called Khamenei's sinking ship. He asked President Trump to exercise the utmost caution to protect civilian lives. Whether Pahlavi has meaningful influence inside Iran today is genuinely unclear. Trump himself had previously been skeptical of Pahlavi's role in any post-regime scenario. But the fact that he is posting videos addressed to the Iranian military within hours of the first strikes tells you something about how this moment is being read by those watching from the outside. Iran's response, on the record and through official channels, has used one word consistently: crushing. A senior Iranian official told Al Jazeera that all American and Israeli assets and interests in the Middle East have become legitimate targets, and that there are no red lines after this aggression. That statement is on the record. Iran's state television reported that a third wave of attacks was commencing. The IRGC claimed to have fired dozens of ballistic missiles toward Israel. The strikes on U.S. bases in Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE are the operational demonstration of a threat Tehran made explicitly before any of this began. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations had written in a formal letter to the Security Council, days before the strikes, that all bases, facilities, and assets of the hostile force in the region would constitute legitimate targets in the context of Iran's defensive response. They said it, and now they are doing it. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, had warned the White House in the weeks leading up to this that a military campaign against Iran could lead to a prolonged conflict, and that shortfalls in certain munitions categories could increase risks to American forces. That warning was in the system before the first aircraft left the runway this morning. Whether it changed the timeline or the targeting calculus is not yet known. What is known is that those American service members, the ones at Al Udeid, at the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, at bases across 7 countries, are now inside the retaliation that General Kane warned about. Trump said in his Truth Social video this morning that for 47 years the Iranian regime has chanted "Death to America" and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many countries. He addressed the Iranian people directly, telling them their hour of freedom is at hand and saying, and this is on the record, "When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take." That sentence is either the most consequential thing an American president has said about Iran in decades, or it is a statement that reveals an assumption about what comes after the bombs stop falling that may or may not be supported by the facts on the ground. No one knows tonight what percentage of Iranians will hear those words and rise. No one knows whether the IRGC, institution by institution, will fracture or hold. No one knows whether the strikes on Tehran's ministries and missile facilities will produce capitulation, consolidation, or something in between that nobody in Washington or Jerusalem has fully planned for. What is not in question is what has already happened and what it has already set in motion. 2 American aircraft carriers are in the region. Iran has struck 4 American military bases. Israel is intercepting ballistic missile barrages. The Strait of Hormuz is under UK MTO alert. Iran's internet has gone dark for the second time in 2 months. The Pentagon has named its campaign Operation Epic Fury, and President Trump has told the Iranian people that their hour of freedom is at hand. The students who were marching on Iranian university campuses this week, chanting slogans that carried the death penalty under Iranian law, went to sleep last night inside a country at the edge of war. They woke up inside one. This is a developing situation. Every detail we have given you is confirmed and sourced. What happens in the next 72 hours, at the Strait of Hormuz, at U.S. bases across 7 countries, inside Iran's chain of command, and inside a global oil market that has been pricing in a $10 risk premium for weeks, will determine whether Operation Epic Fury has a defined end, or whether the word prolonged, the word General Kane used in his warning to the White House, turns out to be the most important word anyone said in this entire crisis. We will keep you informed as events develop. Stay close.